All right. So thanks for coming to my talk. This is like my 30th time to talk and the largest audience I've ever had. So you guys rock. Yeah. So the title of my presentation is basically Sun Tzu was a punk, and Confucius, this guy, he's an infosec rockstar, and I'll explain why. And I will tie this into infosec, so don't worry. You will learn something other than I'm just a jerk and not really technical. So, a little bit about me. It's the obligatory who am I screenshot, right? Well, I'm just basically a onesie-wearing hipster that likes to drink hot cocoa. Oh, crap. Wrong picture. That's me. I'm just a onesie-wearing hipster that likes to drink hot cocoa, talk about healthcare with my family over Christmas. So I'm a security analyst. My title is actually senior security analyst, which I kind of scoff at every day. Because I'm like, I am that successful guy that doesn't do much. This is my tagline at work. Do you even know what a bollard is? Or do you bollard, bro? Because most people that I work with don't know what a bollard is, so I just think it's hilarious. Let's see. I'm also a career presenter, and I say that even, I started like 2 years ago. I speak at small cons because they don't mean anything, Usually I get no hits on Adrian's website, and I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with my masculinity, right? I did mess up because my daughter was like, hey, I heard of this thing called ShmooCon. And I was like, yeah, I've been applying there for a long time, but I'm not good enough for it. So I put her name on there, and at the time she was 13. We were doing some work based off of Hackers for Charity, Johnny Long's work in Uganda. We were doing it in Kenya. And by we, I mean she. I spent $80 and she did all the work. Unfortunately, my wife took her to Kenya and she installed the learning network there and basically did really good things for an orphanage and a school there. And I got to stay home and babysit my other two kids, which I can say this because my wife never listens to anything I say. I had to babysit. She hates whenever I say that. She's like, you're the dad, you don't babysit. We take care of our kids. All right. I'm a Navy veteran. I spent 20 years in the Navy. I did cryptology, which is basically you lock yourself behind a door and see how much work you can not do. And it works because nobody has access to the door. So, it's great. For 20 years, I heard thousands of presentations. Of course, we don't call them presentations. The Air Force does because they're corporate. We call them being yelled at, basically, right? Corrected. Many deficiencies are corrected in the military. So, one thing never failed. It's the fact that you had a Sun Tzu quote in every presentation in the military. Ridiculous. Especially since in cryptology, we're not war fighters, right? We're support. So, all the guys standing up there, the officers doing this, are usually ring tappers, academy grads. They've never deployed, period. And they're the ones quoting Sun Tzu as if they're the experts because they've, been in battle. So once again, in the Navy, you have many opportunities for correction. Do we have any Navy vets out there? Yeah. How many times have you seen Sun Tzu quotes? Many. Yeah. How many times does the guy know what they were talking about? Right. Yeah. So this guy would always show up. Either a picture or a quote or an anecdote, and this was the result. Every time. Right? Immediately, everybody loses interest. So then, in my 20 years, I was fortunate enough that I really didn't deploy on anything gray or fly. I was support, so I got to stay in really hard places like Augusta, Georgia, with the Army. Yeah, that was rough duty. I mean, you put a Smokey the Bear drill instructor hat on somebody, and they go freaking nuts, and they forget their place. So, the Army, you have plenty of opportunities for correction. This guy shows up, and this is the result. Yeah. It's like, really? Come on. I'm 17 years old, and I know better than to listen to you. The Marines were always the anomaly. So the Marines, they had more opportunity for correction, but they got to respond, which is really nice. So in this case, they're doing response drills. This guy shows up, usually not in Marine briefings, and briefings provided by other services, and this was the result. Usually just hysterical laughter. Because if anybody really knows Sun Tzu, it's the Marines, regardless of your rank. Any Marines in here? Regardless of your rank, you receive almost exactly the same training. So whenever you deploy, you're told why you deploy, what the purpose of the deployment is, and what the goals are. Right? If C&M embeds a cameraman in a Marine Corps unit, they don't pick an officer to go with them. They pick the lance corporal, the guy that's been out of boot camp for like 2 years, and he is the spokesman for the Marine Corps. All other services, if they embed photographers or camera people or reporters, they always send an officer or somebody that has 20 plus years in. Not always. There were some times that it didn't happen. So anyway, Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu was a military general in China, about 400 BC. There's some, they didn't really keep very good records of their people back then. So don't really know when he lived, but roughly 400 to 322 BC. All right, that's a lot of time there. He was also a military theorist. He didn't know what corporate America was. He didn't know what management was. And unfortunately, the people that we work for and work with think that because they are managers and they're learned, they can read a Sun Tzu quote and apply it to their job. So we're going to talk about why that's wrong. All right? Sun Tzu does not translate well into information security. Why? We're not war fighters. All right? It doesn't translate well into corporate America. Why? I've never seen a CEO reach across the table and stab someone in the eye preemptively so that he doesn't get taken out first. That's what Sun Tzu teaches you, right? It doesn't translate well to baseball or any coaching you're going to involve with children. It doesn't. You're not going to tell the kids, seek cover, attack, go on the offensive with your bats before they have the opportunity to defend themselves. That's what Sun Tzu teaches. This is what it translates to. Medieval warfare. Plain and simple. Some modern warfare, but we have modern theorists. We have Mackinder, Thayer. We have all these guys that were born after 1900 that we could really start to apply, because that's whenever you're starting to apply management principles, leadership to military tactics. So if it doesn't translate well, what does it actually say? Well, there's 4 principles out of the book. Who's actually read The Art of War? Not like Googled it, but read it. Okay, cool. Usually people just go, yeah. Really? No. Okay. No, I haven't. No. Sorry. So 4 principles. And this sums it up. Number 1, war's unpredictable. It's like, wow! That really just happened. I wasn't expecting that. That's the number 1 fundamental of the art of war. Number 2, deception and surprise are key to your strategy. They're what's called prepping the battlefield. Okay, before you do anything to your enemy, you want to affect your enemy. Whether they think you're there, they don't know you're there, doesn't matter. Right? You're prepping for battle. Number 3, politics and military policy go hand in hand, according to Sun Tzu. At that time, they were a militaristic state, so it made sense. All right? Close relationship. Number 4, war's expensive. It costs a lot of money. How many people have seen how much this war has cost us, the current war that we're in? It's like trillions of dollars, right? It's expensive. Oh, it's just one big war from like 1900 until today. It's just one war. It's war on terror. I mean, I don't have to define anything. It's terror. Wikipedia defined that. Can you tell I spent 20 years in the military? I was a leader. All right, so let's talk about Confucius. Confucius was a contemporary. That means he lived during the same time period. The difference is Confucius was a philosopher. So he actually applies better to information security than Sun Tzu. And the reason is is because philosophers themselves don't even know what they're saying. So they can't tell you what they mean, so you can make it up as you go. All right? Have you ever debated a philosopher? It's like the water runs in the stream. Dude, we're talking about like ancient civilizations and why that affects 20th century industry. Right. So, okay. So, anyway, so here's what he might have looked like. Nobody really knows. They have some paintings. Most paintings of Confucius were actually done after he died. So here's what we're going to talk about. The three main sections for the rest of my presentation. I'm going to introduce some basic information security principles. Things that, hopefully, if anybody's mind blown, then, you don't get your brain matter on someone else. It's not mind-blowing stuff. I don't do mind-blowing research. I basically sit up here, I eat, and I try to be funny, right? I'm an entertainment education, or intercation is what I like to call it. Glenn Beck calls it something else, but I don't like Glenn Beck, so there you go. So we're going to talk about Sun Tzu misquotes, what I like to call cherry picking, and I'm actually going to do a live demo. And I'll tell you right now, the demo gods have failed me because I forgot my 2 copies of Sun Tzu. I have a really pretty copy I got from one of my officers whenever I was promoted, and I never cracked that book open. As a matter of fact, I peeled off the cellophane from it right before I came here and then left it. And then I have a tattered one that was like a little pocket one, because this guy would literally, in front of everyone, say, "Did you read page 32? What? So I'd have to pull it out and read page 32 together, and then talk for 5 minutes of why page 32, whatever the stupid quote out of context meant. But I will do a demo, and I don't want to freak anybody out, but I'm going to do a demonstration from the Bible, just to show you the parallel. Yeah. So here we go. So basic principles, you can find them at your Garden Variety bookstore. There's some really bad books out there. There's some really good books out there. There's some really bad presentations like this one out there. There's some really good presentations out there. All right. The previous, was it Scott, the guy that came before me? This is one of the best presentations I've ever seen. The guy was great. He said a lot of really good things that people just don't think about. Literally. I'm like, you know what? I wish I could be that enlightened, because I'm not. I eat Chinese food. The second thing is, originally, I pulled examples from other presentations that I saw from the information security community. And whenever I did this in front of my coworkers, a couple of them readily identified some of the quotes. Not the quotes, but the people that said them and their explanations. So I pulled all of that out of here. I'm not here to make fun of individual people. I'm just here to make fun of myself. That I mentioned I'm the fat guy that doesn't really do much research, right? Okay. And then the third thing is I took one for the team. I refused to read anything Confucius wrote, but I did eat a lot of Chinese food, and I saved for 6 months all the fortune cookie notes. So whenever I talk about Confucius, it's going to be pictures of fortune cookies, all right? The little tabs inside. I've got them in my wallet still. I've got some back there. I've got them in my backpack. I've got them in my car. I put them in my wife's nightstand because mine's full. So she's really happy this presentation is happening and it's going to be over. So here we go. Here's some information security principles. Number 1, be formal. And by this, I don't mean be a jerk. I mean actually have something that you can repeat, a repeatable process, okay? So formality comes in stages. I'm not saying go out there and try to have a killer information security program in your first year. I'm saying, how about you document what you do? Start there. All right, here's different phases, different stages of a man. I suck at anecdotes, so bear with me. You have 4 maturity models. My boss at work likes to use the capability maturity model. Sounds good. I use this diagram. So that's what I do. Oh, and the purpose here, pick a standard and try to reach a Zen-like state. Okay? So this was an actual cut and paste from someone's presentation of a Sun Tzu quote on have a formal information security program. And I'm going to read this whole thing to you. Bear with me, because it's hilarious. If your enemy is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is in superior strength, evade him. If your opponent is temperamental, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. I'm going to stop. How does this relate to have a formal information security program or write down what you do? It doesn't. But this person got paid as a keynote, and this was his intro to his presentation. Yeah. So this is what Confucius says. The nice thing about standards is there are so many to choose from. Okay? So pick one, apply it. Pick one, don't apply it. Just read about it. You'll be better off. All right? Number 2, secure is not possible. Sorry. Secure is not possible. This is a cut and paste. Risk management is. So the second part I like. The first part, he needs to get a dictionary or something. But, okay, secure is not possible. Risk management is. The idea behind this is you're never going to achieve perfection in security. Can we all agree with that? Right? So what I always say is pick something that you need to protect. Then pick those things that you don't. And don't protect those. Protect this. If you have your, I worked for a company, oh crap. After I retired, I only worked for one company, so I screwed up there. Adrian, can you edit that out? Yeah, there may have been a company that I've seen that has, the CIO came out, well, he's actually gone, so never mind. The CIO came out, a very bright man, and said, data is a strategic asset. And I was like, sweet, that's something we can build around. But then they immediately decided that uptime of systems is more important. So why did you state the first principle if you said we're all about uptime because we're IT? Basically, in this organization, not we, I mean the royal we, in this mythical organization, the information security department, like many other, is part of the IT department. So uptime is where it's all at. What does a infosec leader, thought leader actually, have to say about this? And this is probably the most quoted Sun Tzu quote there is. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. Most people stop there. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. How does that apply to this principle? I don't know, but this guy got paid to say it. Sweet. There's hope for me yet. What does Confucius say? An understanding heart warms all that are graced with its presence. Doesn't that fit much better than the Sun Tzu quote? Another good principle, confidentiality. In information security, we always talk about the triad. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Basically, if I want to keep it a secret, I'll keep it a secret. That's the whole boiled down concept, right? We're getting to the marrow. We ate the ribs later. We've been boiling them. This is kind of what it says, right? Not exactly. All right. So, what do our thought leaders, and I'll use that word a lot just because I love it, say about confidentiality? Well, lo and behold, you already know what they say because they said it previously about something else that it didn't apply to. If you know your enemy, and you know yourself, and you don't know yourself, and you know someone, then you're all going to die, right? So what does Confucius say? Because we can apply his words. No snowflake in an avalanche feels responsible. Huh? Doesn't that fit better? Yeah. Integrity. How do I know that the data that's in the database, or any data, is actually the data that I put there and it hasn't been changed? All right. Simple concept. Here's what our thought leaders say. If you know the enemy, and Come on. Really? People get paid for this. There is hope for me. I will be promoted. I can feel it. Feel it in my bones. What does Confucius say? Well, I'll match your stupid quote with another one. You're a lover of words. Someday you'll write a book. So that's me. Someday I'll write a book. Maybe not write a book. Maybe I'll just contribute to someone else's book. Maybe I'll be the example. Yeah. Don't do what this guy did. That's just going to be a book. Seek out Brandon Miller, known as Fozzie, and don't do what he did. So availability. This is probably my biggest bone of contention with most security programs that are part of IT security, because availability a lot of times means uptime, and that's it. I preach and I preach and I preach and I scream and I gnash my teeth and I cry and I say, look, it's not all about just I turn on my computer, can I get to the network? It's also about why do I have access to this file whenever I'm not supposed to? Or why is it that I'm supposed to have access and I can't get to it? So that's a foreign concept sometimes. So what do our thought leaders say? Well, you might have read this once, twice. People get paid for this. You too can be a keynote speaker. Confucius. Well, Confucius says, a part of us remains wherever we have been. All right, I think that's more apt. It fits, right? Maybe not. It's access, whatever. Defense in depth. I added the what not to do. In this particular presentation, they spoke about, this was a recent presentation, by the way, and it was all a technology focus. It spoke about how, what products you could buy to do, honest to goodness, I've never seen one in the wild, but a belt and suspender, yeah, DMZ. I'm like, who's seen one of those in the past 10 years? I'm like, I don't even know what the heck that is. All right, but that's okay. Thought leader. So I added the what not to do. I say focus on 3 principles for your defense in depth. Your people, your processes, and yes, your technology. If you don't know what the heck it is that you're doing, or what the heck it is that you save every day, how are you going to defend against it? How are you going to defend against it if you have multi-million-dollar systems in place and then the security guard opens the door for anybody that shows up with a piece of plastic on their lanyard, lets them into your data center? All right. Does that work anyway? Does that work? Does tailgating work, Martin? Yeah? Okay. Sorry, we had a conversation last night that... Yeah. I didn't work for Verizon, so I'll repeat that. It's critical unless you don't work for, or unless you work for Verizon. So here's a quote that a friend of mine has been saying for years, and I'll just read it to you. It says, technology solves the problems you didn't know you have. Rarely do they solve the problem that you wanted to solve. I'm like enlightened just by that phrase. And you guys can actually take that and add your name to it. I won't tell you who said it. He's not published. It doesn't really matter, right? So here's a Sun Tzu quote that I could read to you. If you know the enemy and know yourself, seriously, this is the #1 misquoted quote, I guess, misused quote. It's not misquoted because you just put, copy paste. The #1 misused quote from Sun Tzu. If you Google this quote, it comes up, I don't have the screenshot, but it comes up like 200 billion times. It's stupid. I tried to make that search smaller by adding like, site:/.mil, and that actually made it larger. So I was really surprised about that. I was like, whoa, cool. I'm a Google hacker. So what does Confucius say? Well, make those special talents you have work like a charm. What is it Spicoli said? Said, know it, live it, love it. Something like that. I got to get better movie references. Sorry. Okay. Here's another one, and it starts off really great. Users aren't dumb. This particular presenter actually said, I don't like to call people users because it reminds our generation, that's not necessarily for this room, but in present company it was at that time. Is that past company or present future company? I don't know. I'm not an English guy. But basically what he said was, I don't even use the word users. Because who remembers Gruff the crime dog? All right, users are losers, losers are users. Yeah, so he's like, a lot of people in our generation, they get offended by the word user. So I like to call them business units. I can't even keep a straight face. I'm like, what? Okay. So this one, I was going to give you the name because he is a friend of mine, but nobody would know him. He lives in Texas, and he doesn't speak much. But can anyone guess what Sun Tzu quote he used to support this thought? I'll give you one guess. I'll give you his first name. I was like, Scott. I called him on the phone. I said, Scott, hey, I just watched your presentation. Are you freaking kidding me? You're a history major who converted to information security, which number one is wrong, but it works for some people, just not for him. Number two, he should know better. How did you get this quote? He said, I opened up Sun Tzu, the copy that you gave me, and I said, this one looks cool. I was like, thank goodness you taught middle school, you know. So this you get a twofer. Confucius says, take advantage of the dynamic energy to better your relationship. Now, that actually kind of fits, doesn't it? I mean, I'm trying to be funny and fat. I've got one of them down, but that one fits. And then the second one, you'll be rewarded for being a good listener. Now, if you're talking to users, business units, so this is actually a good approach. Scott touched on that earlier. It's basically just dust off your people skills. Go talk to people. I actually thought it was pretty cool whenever he stopped his presentation and made everybody talk to each other. It's the first time I've ever seen that. All right, another one. Once again, basic. This was on building a incident response program. There's actually somebody that was a CISA, which I thought was kind of weird. There was a subject matter expert on this. Prevent, detect, and respond. Anyone want to hazard a guess what quote he used to support this critical process? You got it. So I'm like, seriously? I mean, at this point in my research, I seriously just stopped. Because I could not find very many instances where this quote was not used. So basically, I met the asininary, and that is my word, with asininary. Keep your expectations reasonable. That doesn't fit really with the Sun Tzu idea of this principle, but I think it does. Just be reasonable. Don't try to build, an aircraft carrier if your result, or you have the capability of making a rubber dinghy, right? So start small, build it. Okay, so actually this kind of wraps it up. I do have a live demo, and I did not properly sacrifice to the live demo gods, and that's readily apparent because I forgot my copy of Sun Tzu. What I was going to do is show you what a typical speaker does, which is open up Sun Tzu, point to something, read it, and go, whoa, that's cool! And then build an entire presentation based on that one idea. So I am going to use the Bible. I hope no one's confused or conflicted. I'm not going to preach at you. I'm going to preach to you. So I randomly open it up, Ecclesiastes. This is what the average person does whenever they're doing research for a presentation. Okay? Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. So that basically, I don't want to push beliefs on you, but that may be divine providence, because that is kind of the purpose of my presentation. That I did not plan that seriously. I just thumbed, and maybe my wife was telling me something. She marked it for me. Okay, so basically that's it. Here's my contact information. I'm really not an idiot. I just play one in front of crowds. If you do have any questions, especially in HIPAA, oh Lord. So I spent 20 years in the Department of Defense doing FSMA and all that crap. And then I was like, oh, heaven be praised, I get a job in the outside industry, and it was with a hospital, an educational hospital. So now we've got like 40 different things we have to abide by, and some of them conflict. But here's my blog. Thanks to the one person in the audience, I hope it's in this audience, that actually reads my blog. The easiest way to do is just sign up for RSS feeds, because I'm so infrequent at it. This was like something I started 2 years ago, and I said, I'm going to be a blogger. And I was like, crap, I suck at writing. So there it is. And then, yeah. The last one is just something that I always include in presentations, and it was a copy-paste error years ago. So I just, it's kind of funny now. At least it is to me. But, yeah. It never fits. It's kind of like Dave Kennedy. Anybody see his presentations? He has random cats a lot of times, or just random pictures, or bananas that show up on stage. That's kind of like my thing. So any questions? I'm sure there's no questions, because that was just so enlightening, and yeah. Please no. Yes, ma'am. We have an actual analyst in the room, ladies and gentlemen. So my son, we rotate every Sunday where we're going to eat after church, and unfortunately, he picks Panda Express every time. And then if we have like daddy-son time, because we have a house full of girls. I mean, even our dog and our fish are all girls. So he and I, we have some alone time. I'm like, hey, son, where do you want to go? And he's like, Panda. So yeah, Panda Express. Yes. And yeah, I didn't know it was all sugar. I figured all that stuff came from the rice, right? There's like some biological reason sugar or rice turns into sugar. But yeah, I have convinced him Vietnamese food, pho, is the way to go. So we do pho a lot now, which he's from Vietnam. But. All right, any other questions? Oh God. Yes, sir. if you use if you social engineer your enemy, this will work. It's still kind of a stretch. What I would do is I would paraphrase. I use the ellipses, the 3 dots. Is that what that is? Yeah. I would just kind of get rid of a lot of it and just keep the 4 words that apply to that. But that's probably better than just copying and pasting the whole thing and making it work, right? All right, and that's all. Thanks. Like I said, hopefully I've at least entertained you guys, if not taught you something, which I seriously doubt. But hey, I'm